Welcome to Jaunty Haunts, the podcast about all things supernatural. After 30 years of keeping a secret, I'm finally ready to share with the world that I see ghosts. Yep, I've been having conversations with the other side while trying to keep up appearances. This podcast is all about getting spooky and connecting with others who might also sense, see, or feel things beyond the ordinary. We'll swap true tales of the seen and unseen, and maybe even laugh about the weird stuff we've experienced. Whether you're a skeptic or a believer, come join me as we explore the paranormal. Let's connect, share, and maybe feel a little less crazy together. Welcome to Jaunty Haunts. Hey everyone, welcome to the first episode of Jaunty Haunts. This has been a passion project of mine for many years now, and I'm so excited to finally share it with you all. I so appreciate your patience and support as I find my groove with season 1, and I promise there will be so many fun, spooky stories, cool guests, and plenty of variety, so there's something for everyone. The title of this episode is Ghosts, My Origin Story. We're going to be talking about ghosts, spirits, and the paranormal in general. I'm also going to be serving a heaping load of honest truth about the things that I can see and sense on the daily. Some stuff to look out for. I will be giving each episode a CASPER rating. The more CASPERs, the more scary. The official CASPER rating of this episode is a 1.5 on the CASPER scale. Not too creepy. Anyway, we're going to launch into a true story, followed by a segment with my favorite spooky friend, Sierra. We talk some research, ghosts, and giggle quite a bit. I will be ending the episode with another true tale, so stay tuned, and thanks for listening. So without further ado, please enjoy my personal story entitled Baby Courtney. Let's talk about the first recorded ghost stories of mine and the first record of me being a creepy little baby. My mom had me when she was 19, so it was just her and I and our roommate at the time. This house was a house on a street called Andy Joe Circle. And this house on Andy Joe Circle was haunted by a little old lady ghost. The craziest thing is, I can still remember what this woman looked like. She was short and kind of round, and her hair was kind of brushed back into a very low bun, but it looked like she did have a lot of hair. And it was almost stereotypical old lady, like she had a very long skirt and a button-up shirt, and she wore almost like a shawl around her shoulders. It's funny, I feel like, I don't know if it's just my bad memory. Sometimes I remember seeing her with glasses on, and sometimes I remember seeing her without glasses on. She also had a cane. Sometimes she had a cane, sometimes she didn't. And anyway, my mom said that there were evenings where I would be calling out to her, "Mommy, mommy, mommy," and my mom would run in the room and be like, What's going on? And I, with my little toddler fingers, would be pointing to the corner going, "See her? See her, mommy? See her?" And my mom said she would always just look in the corner and smile, but be terrified out of her mind and just come over to me and tell me to lay back down and calm me down and just be like, "Okay, you still need to sleep," still. So coax me back to sleep. But she said that happened many nights, that I would just be standing up in my crib, pointing to the corner, excited at the lady in my room. So then another cool story in this house was our roommate at the time was in college. She was early 20s, and she had been staying up really late the night before an exam to study. And I guess she set her alarm for the wrong time. She did 7 p.m. instead of 7 a.m. And she said that she remembers feeling a cold hand on her forehead, waking her up. And she looked up and she saw the woman. And, she was terrified, but she got up and realized what time it was and raced out of the house and made it to her exam on time. And I guess also she would see her standing behind my mom all the time. The way that their living room was set up, the couches were facing one way, and then there was a chair with its back towards the hallway. And my mom said there was one time where she was sitting in the chair looking at her roommate, and the roommate looked at my mom and her face was white. And my mom said, "She's standing right behind me, isn't she?" And the roommate was just nodding and smiling. And she said she's just standing there, just smiling with her hand on the back of the chair, just kind of enjoying the conversation. So that's pretty cool. I kind of like that we had a very kind guardian spirit like that. Come to find out later, here's where it gets interesting. There were some details to the stories that my mom left out. I was in college, and we were driving from Oregon all the way back to my hometown in California. I was moving out of my house for the summer. I was telling her about some ghost experiences I had, and she brought up the Andy Joe Circle house and the old woman ghost, and she said, "Oh, there was something I don't think I ever told you. Did I tell you about the forks?" And I said, "No, what do you mean the forks?" And she said, "Well, your dad, my biological father, as I mentioned, my mom was 19, they were young, they didn't work out. It happens all the time. At one point, he was trying to, I think, win her back, or they were trying to work things out, and he was at the house, and the spirit hated him." And my mom said that they were fighting, and the drawer in the kitchen pulled itself open, and forks and knives and spoons, all these utensils started flying at my dad. And he just ran out of the house, and slammed the door and didn't come back in. But my mom was like, okay, that's too much. Thank you. But I've got it, But that really scared my mom. And she let me know that that's kind of why we ended up moving out, I guess, pretty soon after that. I think that really scared my mom, and I think the fact that I was talking to this lady all the time wasn't super comforting either, even if her general energy was good. It's always unsettling when you have a spirit living in your house, or I guess we could say we're living in a spirit's house, because who knows, that could have been her family home. So yeah, that is my first recorded ghost experience. So it was great as I got older and I started, becoming more self-aware and understanding what a ghost is and what imaginary friends are, and feeling a lot of guilt and shame about, do I tell people, what am I seeing? Oh, it's just an imaginary friend. And it's like, well, no, most imaginary friends are princesses or fun creatures or lizards, things that we imagine. It's not always just like men at the grocery store named Frank, random humans who are just sort of transparent that I have no choice in willing up. And so I felt very lucky to be able to speak with my mom and my grandma as I got older about the things that I was seeing and experiencing, because I found out that I wasn't alone in these experiences, and that a lot of the women in my family have had the same gift. I hate that word, ooh, I'm gifted, but that gift to be able to see things that others can't see. Hey listeners, I hope you enjoyed that story. Next, we're going to be shifting gears into the talk show portion of the show, where my GGF, ghoul friend forever, Sierra, joins in. We are pretty silly and giggly, so if you're not here for the chit-chat and you're just here for the spooky stories, feel free to skip ahead toward the end of the episode to hear a second spooky story.
And now, I'd like to introduce my GFF ghoul friend forever, Sierra! She is a believer, a paranormal fanatic, and when she was 5, her favorite movie was Jaws. And when asked why, she said,
"Because of the blood." I had a little French accent, too.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So I said, because of blood.
Because of
blood. Blood.
It was blood in the
it
water.
It is blood, Mommy, blood.
I'm German, that's not French.
Well,
it was blood in the water.
You were a French child and I was a French child and you were a German child.
That's why it was so scary.
Yeah. Insufferable.
Help.
Insufferable.
All right, so this is episode 1. The title of this episode is Ghosts, My Origin Story.
Dun, dun, dun.
Someone in Wicked said that last night, the child behind us. It was funny. The wizard was like, they were like, oh, you're not actually magic at all. And the wizard was like, no, I'm not, or whatever the line is. And the little girl goes, dun, dun, dun. She's funny.
Yeah.
She's got it. She's got talent. Okay, so the first thing, which I think is a fun way to kind of start off this journey, is I want to talk about the definition of ghost by Google. So I'm gonna read you the several definitions of what Google says a ghost is. You ready?
Yes.
Ghost, the seat of life or intelligence. Soul.
Just that?
Just in caps. S-O-U-L. Soul.
Soul.
Give up the ghost. A disembodied soul, especially, which is in italics, especially. The soul of a dead person believed to be an inhabitant of the unseen world or to appear to the living in bodily likeness. We're going to all caps again. Spirit! Demon! Sorry, spirit, comma, demon!
Comma.
A faint, shadowy trace. A ghost of a smile. Which I think is funny in the definition for ghost. A ghost of a smile.
Yeah, I've never heard that phrase.
The least bit, not a ghost of a chance. I think this is just like how it's used in a sentence, maybe. A false image in a photographic negative or on a television screen, usually caused by a reflection.
Oh, interesting.
How the scientists explain paranormal to themselves. One who ghost writes. And then this is really interesting. A red blood cell that has lost its hemoglobin.
What?
Yeah.
Well, that's fascinating.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
That'd be like a ghost cell? Is that a known thing?
Wait, I've heard of ghost cell before.
Wait, really? That must be what that is. Hemoglobin.
Yeah.
Blood. Blood. The hemoglobin.
There's blood in it, Mummy.
There was blood in it, Mommy. That's just Arnold Schwarzenegger. Wait, Patrick Schwarzenegger? That's his son.
Arnold.
Arnold is the one.
Yeah.
I have some research I want to talk about, but first I just kind of want to, without feeling too silly, talk about why I'm making this podcast, why we're here together, and sort of the things that I experience on a daily basis in a condensed version. Sierra is my wonderful friend, so she knows all about this, but I've seen spirits since I was a little girl. As you heard in the audio earlier about my sort of, when I was a baby being creepy with my mommy story, you've heard this as well. Mm-hmm. I also have dreams that come true. Something that's very weird and tender about this podcast, let me rewind a little bit, is that I feel a lot of shame and fear and embarrassment about coming out about this. As you know as well, I feel and I felt crazy my whole life. I feel like I rarely meet people, if ever, who have experienced the same things that I've experienced. So the point of this podcast is to be fun and spooky and have a great time, but also try to connect with those out there who might also experience similar things. Like this morning, Sierra sent me a TikTok of this girl talking about a different kind of deja vu. And I was like, that is literally what I experienced. And it was like this moment of like,
really?
Yeah, I was like, every time that happens, like I thought that's what deja vu is, a feeling like, oh, all right, I'm in this moment. Which one do I do again? I can't remember. Almost like it's like more like, it's not just like, I've been here before. I've had moments like that too, where it's like really light. Like I feel like it's like a smell, like it's just really faint, like a LaCroix.
Yeah.
LaCroix.
Yeah, yeah. LaCroix.
A LaCroix.
Hold on, let me get my French out. Blood. LaCroix.
But like that's kind of how like the very light version of deja vu is for me, of like, oh, I think I've been here before, but like more normally it's this thing of like, oh right, what did I do next? Almost like it is like a memory. And that's why I tell Jordan when it stops, because I'm like, oh right, so in this one I did this and this is when it stopped, if that makes sense. Whereas, that's
fascinating. So you can like
it feels
remember
more like a choice. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Do you remember what happens past that or no?
No, like I always know when it stops. It's so funny. Like we'll be talking and then almost like between 48 seconds or 2 minutes later, I'll be like, and it stopped. That's when the deja vu stopped of this moment, you know? And I've also had moments where like in the TikTok, basically this creator, her name was Kaylin, I remembered, Kaelin, because it was so interesting. But she talks about how it felt like she had a choice. She dropped into her body and then she had a choice of like, oh, right, this moment, I remember this path of doing this or this path of doing that. And sometimes it's not a visual representation of two paths laid out before me, but it is like, oh, right, I did that. Like, I'm remembering I did that, but in this moment, I want to do this. Almost like there is like a separate choice of sort of how the reality is going to play out in the next few minutes.
That's so cool.
Yeah. And usually if I go with what feels like the memory, that's when it goes on and on and on. And I go, that's when it stopped. Or if I kind of ignore it and choose to do something what feels like different, the deja vu was just the moment of recognition, if that makes sense.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow.
The point is, I love finding things like that where I'm like, yes, oh my God, like we're experiencing things similarly that are usually thought of as like weird or stupid or crazy, or people put a lot of judgment on the things that they don't understand. So I'm hoping through multiple episodes and seasons, be able to find people who are like, oh my God, I can see ghosts too, or I can do that too. Like, I want this to be a safe and inviting and welcoming place for people who also experience strange things or just had one weird thing happen to them one time, because we want to hear it and we're not going to judge you. We're not going to be like,
no, we like it. We want
crazy.
it. We crave it.
We crave it.
I can speak for myself.
She craves
I crave it. Like, no, I don't see ghosts. Like, I'm not as cool in that regard as Courtney, but like, I could listen to people's strange stories nonstop.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing is like we're seeing with social media is everybody has experienced something strange in their life, even people who aren't believers, which is great.
Yeah.
Like they'll be like, oh, I don't believe in ghosts, but I did see this one thing and I'm like, it's cool. And it doesn't matter if we know what it is, if we like, I don't know. The unknown to me, the strange, the unknown is just so fascinating and cool. And I think it's something that everybody can relate on some level on.
Absolutely.
You know? Because it's a weird world we live in. Humanity, like this is weird.
It's so weird. These skin bags that we live in and like what happens before or after, if anything at all, and why we have concepts about what comes after when we don't know, you know, and the people who do see things that have technically expired or moved on or died are called crazy. And it's like, we're kind of the only ones who kind of know what's going on. And maybe there's something mentally wrong with me, but I've had things proven right too many times to feel like it's just a trick of the imagination. Yeah. So again, I'm so excited because I want to be exploring and figuring out, another point and purpose of the podcast is to try to find some answers, right? Yeah. Because maybe the right person listens to this and they go, oh my gosh, so that's actually a phenomena known as cuckoo kiki papa tutu syndrome.
Yeah, and there is something with that name,
yeah, you knew all this time and you didn't tell me.
Yeah, I know. I have it to myself.
The cuckoo pata titi
cuckoo kaka piti taku syndrome.
Oh, the other thing I want to talk about in terms of, again, because it's my origin story, I'm not like a conceited or like egotistical person, and another reason it's been taking me a long time to get the ball rolling on this is because it feels like a very like pick me attention thing. But I really want to stress that that's not the point of this. I have these things and I'm being very candid and very honest, and it feels very vulnerable with the intention of being like, all right, I'm throwing stuff out there. Let's see if anybody else can relate. So yeah. Before I go into this mystical history, I wanted to state that again. Yeah. So I have woo-woo stuff, which is a term I'll use all the time, the woo-woo, right? On both sides of my family. So on my mother's side of my family, my great-great-great-grandmother was basically like the town psychic and healer. She would like save people's lives all the time, right? So she would be like asleep, and there are tales that in the dead of night, people would, she'd be having dreams and be like, oh my God, and wake up, and then she'd run and have these visions and run to the doctor's house and knock on the door and be like, Mary Beth is dying in childbirth. And so they'd run to Mary Beth's house, and she'd be like there on the floor having her baby and bleeding out, and they'd like save her, right?
Whoa.
This is according to my grandma.
Yeah.
On my mom's side. My mom's mom has told me these stories my whole life of this amazing woman who would help people out. So that's from my mom's side. I also found out there's some cool stuff about my great-great-grandmother on my mom's dad's side. She had a lot of special powers and a lot of special things, but I found out that she could hold someone's hand and tell them how and when they were going to die. And she was always right, I guess. And to her children and her grandchildren, she always knew when they were lying. She'd touch their hand. So like, again, that's another thing, like there's a term, and can someone in the paranormal world help me? It's like when you're, like, I know there are all these different words for like when you can smell visions, or you can feel them, or you see very imagery, and like for me it changes.
Like clairsentient.
Yes, that's it. Yeah.
Like clairsentient is when you like feel things.
Clairvoyance
Intuitive is when you know things.
Right.
Clairvoyance is when you see things.
See the future. But there's like that one.
I mean, like kinesthetic. I don't know. Is there something with that? Like,
I can't remember.
I don't know.
Like with the Haunting of Hill House, what she has with the gloves. It's like that. Yeah, that's like what my grandma had.
Whoa.
So she could like see stuff, have these visions, and then she would also basically be, again, like always know when someone was lying. So that's on my mom's side. On my biological father's side, there's, it's hard because it's a fine line, right? There's certainly a history of mental illness, which is why my fears play into this.
Yeah.
But my grandmothers on those side as well had stories of having a lot of like physical health ailments, but being able to see things and communicate. I know less about that side because I don't have a great relationship with my biological father's side of the family. But the little things I've heard, and this is a fun thing. My grandma, my dad's mom, she has a lot of past life stuff. She told me this story about how one time she went to Virginia City, which we're gonna talk about. But she went to Virginia City, and she said, I met eyes with this woman I've never seen before. And immediately we both started sobbing and crying. And we ran up to each other, and we were holding each other and just crying and sobbing in the middle. I don't know. I'm getting emotional right now. This is weird.
Whoa.
I don't know. Yeah, weird.
Whoa.
I'm hooking into something. But she said that they were like hugging each other and holding each other, and they were saying like, I missed you. I missed you.
I just got chills.
Oh my God.
I've got chills.
Weird, right? It's so visceral. It's such a visceral thing. I don't know. And how do you know each other? And they said, I don't know, but like, I know you. And she's like, yeah, I know you. But like, they didn't know how.
Here, I would like to insert a clip of my grandmother talking about the past life incident I mentioned.
There was a time, I remember you told me you went to like Virginia City, I think. Can you hear me still? Yeah, and you like saw that woman in the shop, and you thought like that you had known her your whole life, and you guys were like hugging and crying.
Yes. And it was actually the Bucket of Blood Saloon.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And we were having a drink at the bar. That's where that happened. And this couple came in, and they owned a store there, and down the street. And when we both looked at each other, it was like, you know how you like, it was how, I can't even. It was heavy duty. I'm getting goosebumps right now all over my body, because it was like I'd known her all my life. And I'm like, we didn't understand why it was happening. But it's like we knew each other from way back somewhere else.
Yeah, like
and
in a past
the only
life.
thing I could think of was what was coming to me was in a Catholic church, nuns with candles. So we were in, that's what came to me at the time. And I've got goosebumps still.
I have so many chills right now. That's crazy that you had like,
you do too?
Yeah, like a full image about that.
Yep.
That is so crazy.
And I went over there a few more times and got to see her shop, and and I had her phone number, and then I don't know everything. I never got back with her ever again, and it was just the strangest thing, but it was real. I don't know what it was, but yeah, I was heavy duty. That's all I know. But I've had lots of different things like that. It's like I told you, when I was in the grocery store, I would answer people's questions before they asked me.
Right. Yeah, I remember like you, I feel like I'm like you like that too. Like we could always feel like a bad vibe about a person, or you knew if someone was bad. Like I remember you being like, we're not going to, like, let's not walk that way. Or you didn't want to talk to somebody sometimes because you could feel it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think I was like 13 or 14 when she was telling me this, because she said, I have to tell you, the weirdest thing happened. And I was like, what was her name? And she's like, I don't know.
She didn't get her name. She didn't get her number.
I was like, you don't have her name, her number, you don't have any information, like, you don't know, like, write her a letter or something to see what she's like, no, because it wasn't for us. It was from the past. It was something from before, but we really needed that, Court. We really needed that.
Whoa.
And, like, that's the thing, like, with my dad's mom. Like, she just says offhanded shit like that all the time. And it's just like, what? You don't want to go further into that? And we'll talk way more about her when we get into the aliens episode.
Oh, I can't wait.
The cryptids episode. But, yeah, so bizarre, right?
Yeah.
And she was always one who told me, like, go with your gut, Cora. Always listen to your gut. Always listen to the voices that you hear telling you right and wrong, because they're going to steer you right. When you don't listen, bad things happen. And she's right. When I haven't listened, bad things have happened. But I think that's a good general for everybody. On a biological level, we can sense danger.
Yeah.
But, yeah, so that is the woo-woo ancestral origin. I'm sure I'll remember other stuff later. This is me after an 8-hour shift. But I'm so happy to be here.
I know, me too.
So anyway, enough of me. I want to read you something cool. Let me grab my book.
Okay.
So I'm going to tell some stories live to validate my credentials, so the listeners can know kind of like what this podcast is. But first, I want to talk about some fun research I did in terms of science and ghosts, right? Yeah. I have this cool book. It's called Spook by Mary Roach. It's a Spook, Science Tackles the Afterlife. I'm going to be completely honest, I have not finished it yet, but I've taken out some cool points of the book that I like. But specifically because this was also on an episode of Evil. Have you watched that show?
I was just
we haven't talked about that. Okay, so then this is not even a fun surprise.
But I've only watched the first season.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I can't remember what season they did this in. The weight test of how much a soul weighs.
I don't remember.
That's okay.
It's been a while.
That's okay.
But I think I've like heard of this concept.
Yes. Okay. So basically, my cue card here is a proof of the weight of a soul at death. Right. So. And there's another little thing I have to read you after because it's so creepy. Also about Catholics. Okay. All right. So this person, Duncan McDougall, was basically hatching a plan to prove the existence of the human soul. He says, in quotation marks, "It is unthinkable that personality and consciousness can be attributes of that which does not occupy space. The question arose in my mind, why not weigh a man at the very moment of death?" So, yada, 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 scanning. Suddenly, coincident with death, the beam, we're talking about the scale, the beam end dropped with an audible stroke, hitting the lower limiting bar and remaining there with no rebound. The loss was ascertained to be 3/4 of an ounce, which is, yes, 21 grams. So at the moment of death, the scale did drop. 21 grams. So here's the thing. Other scientists have attributed it to a lot of other things. He did this test basically 5 more times. It was similar findings each time.
Yeah.
People call it insensible loss, body weight that is continually being lost through evaporating perspiration and water vapor in one's breath is what they're attributing it to.
Interesting.
Which for sure could be a thing. And then people are like, oh, it's feces, it's bile, it's this, it's that. It's like, no, because that's still on the scale, right? It's not like that slides out of him and onto the floor.
Right.
Like, there is some amount that is gone. So I just thought that was like a cool little tidbit. But like, what do you
really
think
cool.
about that? Like,
I think that okay,
because it's less than an ounce too, right? Like,
it's less than an ounce, but nonetheless, I don't know. I feel like that's still something. I would be curious if that test had been done on multiple people.
Yeah.
And
yeah, they said that they did about 5 times, and it was about the same each time between like, I think it said like 21 and 23 grams. Was that what I said? But still, like around an ounce, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I see. That's what's wild to me, because I don't know the sizes of all these people, but like for it to be the same,
around the same,
that I don't know. That's really cool to me.
I think so too. It seems like something was leaving from people at the moment of death, other than just feces and bile and things that would fall again from the body onto the scale, or within like some, like I think they even made like a weighted contraption that like would hold their bodies, so like nothing even leaving them would leave like there's not even a margin of like gravity, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, so interesting.
I have to say too, like I've heard so many accounts of people being with loved ones when they've passed.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, my mother, for instance, when my grandmother passed, is like, she looks like she was sleeping. I saw my granddad when he passed, both of my grandfathers actually, and it does look like they're sleeping, right? Like nothing has changed physically yet in every account, every person I've talked to, including my own experiences. It's like but it's not them.
Yeah.
The essence of that person or that animal is gone. It's like our bodies are vehicles for
these souls.
Our souls. I don't know. That's what I think. And there's just something to that. Something like maybe unexplainable, but I love that there are people who are trying to explain it and are trying to get to the source of it, because
in like the 18 or early 1900s, like this was like
really
pretty recent too. Yeah. It was April 10th, 1901. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so I would be curious if something like this has happened
on a more
recently
level.
Too.
Stay tuned.
Ooh.
Stay tuned.
No, I'll look it up. I'll Google it later. That's fun.
But like that, either way though, that is pretty recent. And like, I don't know. I think there's something to that. There's something to the weight being all in the same region, all in the same range.
And then piecing out.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, I'm going to read you one more little thing because it's just so fucking creepy to me. And I told Jordan and he was like, well, it's like, like our boyfriends are like, sorry, your fiance.
Yeah.
Your fiance.
Oh, sorry. Plot. Fiance.
Oh, that's
we went
good.
a high pitch. Fiance. You throw it away a little bit.
Oui, poodle, cigarette.
Cigarette. German.
French people are going to hate us.
Yeah.
Oh, wait,
and
German?
Germans. Fiance.
Bratwurst. Pretzel. Fiance.
That's it. Well,
it's a little French.
It's hard to say fiance
yeah.
as a German.
Fiance.
Fiance. That's it.
Fiance.
Nailed it.
Okay, sorry. Every time I read it, it freaks me out so bad. Okay, so listen to this. So this is Mary Roach, the author, speaking. Ready? I called up the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops, the American mouthpiece of the Catholic Church, and was put through to the organization's then librarian, Anne Levesque. Anne is an accommodating wellspring of Catholic-related trivia, including the stupendously odd fact that freshly dead popes are struck thrice on the forehead with a special silver hammer.
What the fuck?
Yes.
Why? What? Why?
Yeah. So it doesn't really. no, like literally the minute they die, they strike them in the head.
Like really
3
hard?
times. Well, see, that's what Jordan said. He's like, it's probably not hard.
Either way,
probably
it's weird.
And I'm like, no, for me, it seems like it would like be like a break the skull type thing. I don't know, but I'm also very morbid and like in the macabre, so I'm like, oh yeah.
That's weird.
Let me read on another couple sentences just to see, but it doesn't really explain why. Yeah, it doesn't explain why. They just kind of threw that fact in there. They just peppered that in. So I also kind of feel like it has something to do with like possession or demons or like zombies, like that they want to make sure that the Pope is like for sure dead, right?
Oh.
Like this is me speculating. This is all what's the word? It starts with an A, like so you're not liable for anything.
Alleged. Allegedly.
Allegedly. This is me, Courtney, just making this up. But no,
Yeah.
I do feel like it has something to do with like possession and stuff like that, because silver dates back to being a very like holy metal with like vampires and werewolves and stuff like that. Like it seems like a very weird like medieval tradition that it's like, yeah, after they die we hit them on the head with a silver hammer 3 times, right?
It also makes me think of that Beatles song, which is very...
Wait, which one?
Bang, bang, Maxwell's silver hammer came down upon his head. You don't know that song?
I don't know that song.
Oh, it's dark.
Oh, I gotta hear it.
Yeah.
What's it called again?
Maxwell's silver hammer.
Maxwell's Silver Hammer.
Those Beatles were on
Oh my
some
gosh. Shit.
shrooms, LSD.
We should do a drugs episode.
Allegedly.
Alleged. I'm turning I'm really becoming a 1920s person
Allegedly.
today. It's my nerves. I just become someone from the 1920s.
Yeah.
Allegedly. The Beatles? Who are they? No, I know who the Beatles are. Oh my God, I know who they are.
Allegedly.
Come together tonight in the town.
We don't have the rights.
Yeah,
so.
I know the real words.
Allegedly.
Okay, so is there anything you want to say about any of like the definitions or the research, or in terms of like ghosts as a theory on whole? Like, what is your opinion, take, desire? Like, what are your thoughts on ghosts in general before we kind of start wrapping up?
I don't know. I mean, I'm fascinated because there are a lot of different types of ghosts, right? Like, there are poltergeists and I don't know if I don't know. They're just, it's such a broad, I feel like it's such a broad term.
I feel bad I didn't actually ask you this directly. What do you believe about the paranormal, if anything? Like, what are your beliefs about,
I mean, to be honest, I'm inclined to believe not everything I hear. That's not true. But I guess I can say, like, I believe that there's something more to this. Like, energy cannot be created nor destroyed. When we die, it has to go somewhere. And I think there are far too many accounts of people seeing things and hearing things and knowing things for there not to be some sort of validity to it. And we're mere humans. Like, we don't know, we don't know anything for sure. Mm-hmm. You know, there's just so much out there that we don't know. And it would be crazy to me not to call non-believers crazy, because we're all inclined to believe what we believe. But for me, knowing everything that I've learned and hearing so many stories, it would be wild to not believe in the paranormal. Right. To not believe that there's something else beyond these vehicles that we're, you know, like there's something more. There's yeah. I haven't seen a ghost though. So if you believe that old trope, seeing is believing, then I don't believe. But I believe.
Yeah.
I believe. And like they say on the X-Files, which I love that show, I want to believe. And I do. I really do. You know?
It seems like life is so boring if you don't.
Yeah. We only live, well, I was going to say we only live once, but I don't know if I believe that.
Right? Yeah. We'll talk about reincarnation too.
Yeah.
Great. So to wrap up, I'm going to tell you a story and another one that kind of hooks onto it for the listeners to hear about a true tale that happened.
Cool.
So for the sake of their privacy and identity, I'm going to change their names. So I worked at a very common store for groceries, Hawaiian themed.
Maui Mike's.
Yes.
Unless that's a real store, in which
I love
case.
it. When I worked at Maui Mike's last year, people should know that the amount of employees at Maui Mike's in Manhattan, we have around 200 employees. So at any given time, you're meeting new people, you're working all the time. You find your clique of people that you kind of get along with. But there are people that like I never talk to, I think, ever once, because sometimes they work day, sometimes they work night. I always work the night shift, which was 4 p.m. to midnight. So I had just started and I get so nervous, I don't know why. So I had just started working there, and basically one night I specifically was in the dairy section. The store had closed and I was putting yogurts up. And I saw a sort of silhouette of a tall, dark shadow figure. So it kind of came in and panoramic, like came from my left side and went like behind my head and over to the right. And it just sort of stayed there. And there were no windows in this Maui Mike's. You know, it was a basement. So it, there's a lot of trapped energy, right?
Oh.
So when it's the same thing as where we are right now, my current job, Shell Studios.
Yeah. That's good.
Energy needs to. It's like why when you sage or cleanse your house, you open the windows so that things can leave. So especially when you're in a very like high energy place like Maui Mike's, like the energy just sits there and it circulates, and there's anger and happiness and whatever and da-da-da. And basically I saw this thing and my first thought was like, okay, it's just trapped energy. I don't want to engage, right? It's almost midnight. I'm tired. I just want to go home. But it's like very much staying there. And then the manager at Maui Mike's is like, all right, we're going to have a meeting, closing meeting. Everybody come on, sit down, we'll circle up. So we gather, and there's a group of people who are kind of sitting crisscross applesauce on the floor. And I see the shadow figure come from where I was standing, walk up to the group of people who were sitting crisscross applesauce, and put his hands on the shoulder of one of the gentlemen who was sitting there. And then his head turns to look at me, the shadow, not the person. And it's hard when it's like a shadow figure because you kind of just see the silhouette, but you're seeing the profile, right? Looking down at this person, and then the profile just shifts to look at me. So I'm like, okay, clearly this is something or someone attached to this person. Now this person, we'll call him Shane. Shane and I weren't friends. We didn't really talk. We didn't really know each other. Seemed like a very nice guy, but like, I don't know him. And so I'm like, what is this? During the whole meeting, the shadow figure is looking at him, looking at me, being very distracting. And they're like, okay, everybody, let's wrap it up. Ba-da-ba. So I'm like, oh gosh, I didn't like that. I get my stuff. I get my stuff from the locker. I'm ready to leave. But I keep seeing it. Like, it's like, as I'm going to the locker, as I'm going to it's like, it's just standing there at least like 10 feet away always. So anyway, I leave the building. I call my boyfriend and I say, man, this just happened. It was very strong, and he touched a coworker. Like, he was clearly connected to the coworker. I don't know what he wants. It freaked me out. And as I'm on the phone, I see Shane on the corner, and he's looking down, like he's rolling a joint, and he all of a sudden stops mid-roll, and I'm like, oh my gosh, Shane is out here. How what a coincidence. And Shane looks up and turns around to face me and starts waving at me. And I look behind me because I'm like, oh, is one of his friends with me? Because I'm not friends with Shane.
Yeah.
And I'm like, hold on, let me call you back. So I hang up and I walk up and I'm like, hey, Shane, what were you waving at me? And he's like, yeah, I don't know. It was really weird. I just like I just like waved at you. I don't really know why I did that. And it was like, okay, like, you know, but I said, it was overcoming. I had to give him this message. Like it's almost like it feels like, how to explain it? It's like when you're gonna throw up, you know, like it's just like, this is happening now, and like get out of my way because it's gonna come out. That's how it feels like when this kind of stuff happens, when it's like someone wants to put a message through me, right? And I'm like, oh, like you get that kind of nauseous feeling. I'm like, I have to tell you something. It's gonna sound really crazy, and you don't have to believe me, but I see ghosts, and did you lose someone recently? And Shane goes white. His eyes go huge, and his throat, like his voice is shaking immediately. And he was like, how do you know that? And I was like, I know this sounds crazy. Like I see spirits, and there's someone with you. I think it's like a male spirit, and it almost felt at this point, as I'm starting to convey the message, that I'm wearing like gloves, if that makes sense. Like it felt like the spirit started to come through me, which I don't like that. And this was the first time it was that visceral, right? And I was like, oh, okay, I'm just saying the words that he's saying through me right now. And he was like, I want you to know that he says that he's really proud of you and he's with you. Shane is bawling, fucking sobbing his eyes out. And I'm like, I'm so sorry. Like, I have to tell you, like, you know, he says he loves you and he's with you and he's so proud of you. And, you know, he sees what you're doing to try to work on becoming better, and he sees the progress you're making, and he's really proud of you. And I'm crying at this point. I'm like, and he loves you so much, and anyway, I think that's it, but can I give you a hug? And he's like, yeah. And so we're like hugging and grasping each other, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go, are you okay? And he was like, yeah, but how did you know that? And I was like, I told you, I see spirits. He's like, no, how did you know that though? And I was like, I don't know how to explain it. I want you to know everything's gonna be okay, and he's with you, okay? He was like, okay. And so like I left, and I felt very raw and very weird, especially because like it kind of like passed through me in this weird way, and it didn't pass over, it didn't cross over at all. Like it's with him. And it felt good but also bad. And I was like, I don't know about that.
Why did it feel bad?
Because it felt unfinished. And it also felt like he didn't cross over. He's just like felt happy to have a sort of walkie-talkie from the other side.
Gotcha.
But he's hanging around.
Yeah.
Right? Which sometimes is nice if it's like a spirit that's like, oh, I'm visiting from where I live. But this was here. It was stuck here. Like it had unfinished business. And so... Anyway, I get home, I saged, it felt really weird. I cried a lot more when I got home. A couple of days went by, and I see Shane at the register at Maui Mike's, and I see the spirit. This time the spirit is coming through like way more full form, right? I'm seeing features now. I'm seeing eyes, lips, nose, separated phalanges, hands.
Really?
You know, like yes, it's becoming more of a human, which basically means like for me, from my interpretation, that the energy around it is stronger. It's becoming clearer. It's gaining more clarity. Maybe because Shane was, praying or speaking to it, it was becoming stronger. Which again isn't a bad thing necessarily, but it wouldn't leave me alone. It was like. Yeah. Oh, hey, I need you to tell him. I need you to tell Shane. Get his attention. Like, and it's not always in like regular English, but it almost feels like there's like spider webs on your face and someone's pulling the spider webs off. Like that's like the energetic equivalent where I'm like helping a customer, and then all of a sudden you're feeling like hairs on your face.
Ew.
Yeah, it's not great. And you have no control over it.
It's just annoying.
Yeah. And so I look over, and he's like, oh God, what did he say? This was almost a year ago now. I'm mad. I should have written this down. Let me think for a second. Let me lock in my little mind. I can't remember the exact phrase, but it was something that was sort of like broken, like not common vernacular. Like it didn't make a lot of sense. It was something like, he said, "Hey, tell him that's the thing. That's what's up. That's the thing." Something like that. And I was like, "What?"
Okay.
And he just kept saying it. So I said, I turned around and I said, "Hey, Shane," and his eyes go wide and he is like scared. He's like, "Hey, Courtney." And I'm like, I'm so sorry. I don't, and I'm like whispering. I'm like, I don't want to freak you out. But the thing I was talking about the other night, and he was like, he looks left, he looks right, and he goes, "Yeah." And I go, he wants me to tell you, that's the thing. Like I said it like how he said it. And again, his eyes go wide and he starts cracking up. He goes, "Oh my God, wait, how do you know that?" And I was like, "I don't know." He also says, and the spirit said, "She's not the right one for you."
Oh.
And I said, he's saying, and again, I don't know if this makes sense to you, but he says, "She's not the right one for you," like that. "She's not the right one for you." And he goes, and he starts laughing again. He goes, "Oh my God." And I said, does that make sense for you? And he goes, yeah, it does. Wait, but how do you know that? Like he started to get a little mad.
Yeah.
Like I think he thought, I don't know. I would like, who knows? Who knows what he thought? But I was like, it doesn't matter how I know it. I just do. And I'm sorry, I'm not trying to freak you out. And he's like, it's freaking me out. Like, ooh. How do you know that?
Yeah.
I said, look, I know this is gonna sound crazy, but you need to tell whoever that is. And he goes, "It's my dad."
Oh.
I said,
I just got chills.
Yeah. He said, "My dad died in August and it was October."
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh, poor guy.
Yeah. And I said, "Okay, I respect you, I respect your family, but I know this sounds crazy. Can you tell him he needs to leave me alone? He needs to, if he has anything else to say, we can talk privately, but I have to do my job. Like I have to go around my life. Like, can you just tell him, hey, leave Courtney alone, leave her alone?" And he just nodded. He said, "Okay." I said, "Okay." So after that, I didn't see him again.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So I think he did tell him.
Yeah.
And I think he did. I think he knew that it was becoming too much.
Yeah.
I don't know if he ever crossed over, but Shane still feels very like haunted.
Interesting.
I went into Maui Mike's after I don't work there anymore. I went in to buy something the other day, and who was at the front of the line but Shane? And he
really
looked down from the podium and goes, "Oh, really?" Yes. He saw me and he literally like recoiled. Yeah, recoiled. He goes, "Oh, hey, you can go to register 15. I go, "Oh, thanks, Shane." And I walked over.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Every time I saw him after that, he was always like, I could literally see him physically reacting like, "Hey, how are you?" I'm like, "Good, how are you?" And like, I really scared him, and I feel bad because I didn't want to scare him.
Yeah.
But I also knew that if I didn't tell him, the spirit of his father literally wasn't leaving me alone. The minute I entered Maui Mike's, it was like, "Hey, there's Shane's dad," like.
Oh gosh.
So anyway, this story is just to confirm that I've got something going on. I don't just see stuff in the night. I've had multiple experiences where facts were proven by other people around observing. This has been episode 1.
Yeah.
And ghosts and my origin story. Ooh. So thanks for listening in, and thanks for tuning in if you're watching. And thank you, Sierra, so much for being a guest.
Yeah,
Yay.
Thank you for letting me just absorb all the spookiness, because I just love it.
Always. And we're in spooky season. It's September.
September.
Do you want to say anything?
Blood.
Blood.
There's blood in it.
Yay!
Woo!
Thanks so much for listening. Remember, you are not alone if you've ever heard a bump in the night or caught something out of the corner of your eye. There are countless others who experience things they can't explain. And this podcast is your safe place to listen and share. Also, I want to remind everyone that this show is for entertainment purposes. I am not a professional paranormal investigator. I did not go to school to study this. I can only speak about my firsthand experiences. And with that, I'd love to mark the importance of spiritual inclusion. Your thoughts, ideas, and theories about the other side are welcome. And we know that so much of our common knowledge and perception about the paranormal stems from historical and cultural experiences. So we are open to your knowledge and understanding of things that we may be ignorant about or not fully understand. Let's learn and grow together. Stay spooky, and we'll see you next time. Hey, ghoul friends! Got a spooky story to share? Well, I want to hear about your haunts. Whether you've seen a ghost or something unexplainable, send your supernatural experiences to us at jauntyhaunts@gmail.com. That's JAUNTYHAUNTS@gmail.com. Or DM us on Instagram at jauntyhaunts.pod. That's jauntyhaunts.pod. You can also find us on TikTok and YouTube under Jaunty Haunts Podcast. I want to hear from you.